Hi, and welcome to a brief intro video on the Logictry platform and how it can be used to build custom assessment tools. Let's start by taking a look at two examples of what you can create. So the first is this climate readiness assessment that we built for a climate strategist. So if you go through these questions, as you answer, it might conditionally ask you different follow-on questions depending on what you ask and answer. And then at the end of it, after you've answered all the questions, at the very end, you get their custom report that they've designed, which gives you a slider with percentage breakdowns of these four areas, as well as recommended next steps for all these other different categories of your business. Now, another example that looks similar but also custom is this assessment we built for a diversity, equity, and inclusion business coach. So as you go through this assessment, they have some different questions. These are based on the Likert scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. And when you get to the end of it, the report that they have is their own custom report. You get a diversity score, equity score, inclusion score, and an overall score, as well as recommendations for how to take corrective action in these three different areas of your business. Now, any of these assessments that you create can be immediately embedded into your website, just like this example here. So we see that exact widget that we just went through showing up embedded on their webpage, and now this is a lead gen tool that they can go out and market to their potential clients. So it helps to show the value of what they do as a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant to get and earn the business of their potential clients. All right, so for the second half of this video, let's now take a look at what it looks like to create a custom assessment just like this. So we will now switch here and click Create New App. And I want to point out you have this assessment tool template that you can start from. However, we're just going to create a simple one from scratch. So I clicked on Blank App, and let's do a fun assessment. Let's assess your ability to ski assessment. And so this will be an assessment tool for helping people understand how good of a skier they are. And so to do this, what we'll do is put down a calculation logic, because we're going to do some calculations. And then let's put down the first question that we're going to ask the user. Now, typically we would do something like this. We would say, have you been skiing? And we'll say no and yes. So if I preview this, we can start to see this question getting built, no and yes. Now, we're going to do this though a little bit differently, because for building an assessment, we need to have this calculations and a numerical value being associated with our answers. So the way we're going to approach this is slightly different. We're going to actually put a Q1 in lieu of that text. And the reason we're going to do it is because we're going to use a different node called display text to then put, have you been skiing? And then where there's a no, we're going to do this first by a value. So we'll assign the value 0. And if they say yes, we'll assign the value 5. And then for that 0, let's put a display text of no. And for the 5, let's put a display text of yes. Now this looks like we changed it, and it looks like it might represent differently to the user, but if we click preview, we see that it looks identically to what we had before. So this is great because now we're set up for all the calculations that we're gonna create. So we'll add one more question that if the user picks yes, let's add another question. We'll call that question 2. And the display text is, how many times have you been skiing? And then we'll put the answer of a numerical value of 1, 3, and 5. And for 1, let's assign the answer choice of less than 5 times. For 3, we'll put the display of between 5 and 10 times. And for the 5, let's put more than 10 times. All right, great. Let's see what this looks like. So if they pick no, nothing happens. And if they pick yes, we see how many times you've been skiing. This looks great so far. All right, so now that we have that, we're going to introduce the calculation based on this. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to add a calculation node here, and I want to compute the score. And here's what I'm going to show you, what the result I want to achieve is. I want to compute the average of these two questions, but I also want to do one thing. I want to change this from a 0 to 5 rating to a 0 to 100 rating, so that when it gets presented to the user, they see from 0 to 100. So I put down the calculation of score. I'm going to put down a calculation operator and say, I want to compute the average. And then I'll put another operator and say the average of the multiplication and the multiplication of Q1 times the constant of 20. I want to then put another multiplication and put Q2 times the constant of 20. And so I did that pretty quickly, but let's review. I put down a multiply Q1 by 20, multiply Q2 by 20, and then compute the average of those two, and that is the resulting score. All right, let's preview and see what's happened so far. So if I click on no, the 0 shows up. If I click on yes, we have 100. Less than 5 now makes, because of the average, it's now computing 60, 80, and 100. So that looks great. So we'll go back to edit mode, and the last thing I want to do is flip down to report to show how this is going to show up. So let's just add a really simple text for now and say your ski result is, and then there's one special trick. You put open handlebars and you put score and then close, and then we can even add a percentage. So let's go ahead and preview. And if we say yes, between 5 and 10, click on report, and we see your ski result is 80%. So that is looking great. And then, as we get close to seeing this value here is great for testing. But of course, once we release this, we wouldn't want the end user to see that value. So we can go down and click hide text once we're ready to actually release this, and now it no longer shows up for the end user. And let's take a look at one more quick thing, and that is, how did this custom formatting here with this nice image and this border, how did that get created? Well, everything that you create in the platform is full HTML WYSIWYG capable. So if I click into this, I can click and see the raw HTML that made that layout happen. And I can actually copy this, and then let's go back to ours. I'll put down a text node, paste that raw HTML, and I'm going to drag the calculation logic underneath it. Now this is important. This has the same theming like for the report. It has this content inside. It's important that we name this node the exact same thing, because this tells it to put this content directly here in the HTML. So let's go preview it, and there we go. We now have this custom layout that we've created with our assessment and the custom report. And so from here, we can do, essentially, there's virtually no limitations. The platform gives you all the easy ability to create all this custom logic, the scoring, the reporting. Logictry is the structure of it, but you can bring in all the custom HTML to have it look and feel in exactly the way that you want it to. And so it's a great tool that if you used Webflow or some other tool to prototype the HTML content, you could then quickly and easily import it and then have your custom assessment.